Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Daredevil Born Again Season 2 review series. And today I am going to be talking about episode 3, The Scales and the Sword, which I have just finished watching. And this episode was absolutely fantastic and definitely a lot more stronger than episode 2, even though I did enjoy episode 2, but I just felt that there were some parts of it that wasn't as strong as it could have been. But I thought episode 3 more than made up for what was lacking in episode 2. So, episode 3, we saw Daredevil and Karen Page working together and gaining new, unlikely allies in the effort to take down Wilson Fisk once and for all. And it was brilliant. Everything about this episode really kept me on the edge of my seat and really got me hooked in terms of where we're going for this season. And as I said, I absolutely loved it. This was so good. And it's almost like the show has figured out where they went wrong in season 1, even though I enjoyed season 1, and kind of took a look at it and said, right, this is where we went wrong in season 1. What can we do to improve it for season 2? And they have. They really have improved things. And it almost feels like the old Daredevil shows from Netflix, but obviously different. And I like it. It's got all of the rawness, all of the grittiness that made the first 3 seasons of Daredevil on Netflix so epic. And like I said, absolutely love this episode so much. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far. And then after that, we're going to get straight into talking about episode 3. So, as we saw previously in episode 2, we saw the brief return of Point Dexter, also known as Bullseye, make his return as he came to Clinton Church and was looking for some form of absolution for everything that he has done. And throughout episode 2, we saw Wilson Fisk's wife, Vanessa, was haunted by images of Point Dexter. And for those of you who are wondering why, back in the Netflix shows during season 3, Point Dexter was targeting and stalking Wilson Fisk's wife, Vanessa. And Vanessa was still reeling from that traumatic event. And also during episode 2, we also saw another video of someone impersonating Wilson Fisk and calling out the brutality on the streets perpetrated by the AVTF on his orders. And we see after the recording has stopped, we see that the impersonator is none other than Urich, who has been leaking videos calling out Wilson Fisk's authority, and she was questioned earlier by Blake about whether or not she was the one who was leaking these videos that were discriminating his boss, Wilson Fisk. And we also see Murdoch and Page's hideout has been compromised, and this leads Murdoch to suit up as Daredevil, and he confronts the AVTF, and he saves Josie from being captured. And we also see Paige takes down an officer who is coming after her. And then At the end, we see Daredevil regroups with Paige, who captures one of the officers and takes him to Knickerbocker Village and shows Daredevil the ATVF officer that she has managed to capture for questioning. And that's how we ended episode 2. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 3, the scales and the sword. So we see Karen Page shows Daredevil the anti vigilante task officer that she captured, and he is concerned that Page is acting very reckless, but she assures him that this one is a special case, and as she lets Alan Saunders speak, he claims to be on their side. Once Daredevil verifies he is telling the truth, Saunders says that he has been on the Northern Star detail and provides Daredevil with a key card that provides access to the AVTF base at Red Hook Port. Saunders pleads with them to stop Kingpin and the AVTF before Daredevil knocks him out so he and Page can drop him off. We then see Heather Glenn struggles to focus as the trauma inflicted on her by Muse still continues to haunt her, as she resorts to using Muse's mask to reassure herself. She later meets with Kristen McDuffie, who is working on her defense of Jacques Duquesne, as his trial has been moved up 2 weeks. And McDuffie calls Glenn out of the psychological reports she did on Duquesne, and Glenn claims that all vigilantes are dangerous while mentioning that Murdoch has either been killed by one of them or he is working for them. McDuffie empathizes with the horrible experience Glenn went through, but says that she is wrong and that siding with Wilson Fisk is not the answer. To prepare for the case, McDuffie manages to get an audience in Duquesne, so Cole North escorts her to his cell while she is blindfolded and cannot see where she is. Once she finally gets to talk to Duquesne about the upcoming trial, Duquesne claims that it will definitely be rigged and brings up how Fisk tried to coerce him into funding the Red Hook Port revitalization project. McDuffie theorized that Fisk is going after him specifically so he could legally appropriate Duquesne's assets as he will be deemed a criminal. Regardless of the odds, McDuffie is still determined to defend Duquesne, certain that the prosecution cannot definitely prove that he is who they claim he is. At Knickerbocker Village, Page is working on their next move against Kingpin, and Murdoch says that she is reminding him of Frank Castle. Murdoch is concerned that Page might be preferring Castle's radical methods and tells her that murder is not the way and killing Kingpin would not bring Foggy Nelson back. Paige understands where Murdoch is coming from, but she cannot hold her frustration that, regardless of everything that's happened, Kingpin gets away with everything and is only getting more powerful. Discussing their plans regarding the weapons at Red Hook, Murdoch remains determined to go in, even though Paige is worried that he might not come back if he does. Marge McCaffrey and Joan Gomez arrive at the New York City Hall to speak with Fisk after Page anonymously sent them a copy of the charter of the Port of Red Hook. McCaffrey accuses Fisk of using his contacts in the CIA to avoid state oversight, but Fisk dismisses her claims and says that he does not help from the state. She reminds Fisk that he is not immune, and as the governor, she has the capability to revoke the Freeport state of Red Hook. Fisk says that she better not do that for the sake of New York City, to which McCaffrey implies that she might know more about his operations than he thinks he does. Oh boy, getting hot now. Buck Cashman checks on Daniel Blake and his attempts to find a leverage on McCaffrey, but Blake says that she is too clean and he cannot find anything. Blake attempts to try and get Gomez to tell him something useful during the dinner with the governor and asks Cashman for tips from his special air service experience. Cashman does not play along with his antics and suggests to focus on finding the source of the leak that the city without fear is using. Blake tries to spin those videos out as something flattering, but Cashman shoots the idea down and claims that whoever is behind these videos must be punished. Oh boy, getting hot now. So we see the people versus Duquesne Ducoun begins with Fisk, Murdoch, Page, and the whole city watching the trial closely. Just as Duquesne predicted, the trial is a complete sham as Benjamin Hochberg uses Glenn's report to liken Duquesne to a serial killer, while all of McDuffie's objections get overruled. Duquesne takes the stand and testifies about Fisk trying to extort him, which Hochberg gets struck out of the record as irrelevant. McDuffie argues with the judges that she was not given a chance to build a proper case and requests more time. But the judges decline, bound by the Safer Streets initiative, and despite McDuffie's efforts, Duquesne gets declared guilty and remanded until proper sentencing, much to Fisk's delight. So Fisk is getting more powerful and getting more influence by the day. During the charity event at Gracie Mansion, Sheila Riviera catches up with McCaffrey while Blake tries to get Gomez drunk and talking. Vanessa Fisk gets Glenn to sit with Cashman, implying that the two of them could get to know each other better. Glenn and Cashman talk about the state of affairs in the mayor's administration, as Cashman suggests that there is more to Blake than meets the eye, while Riviera could be capable of betrayal. McCaffrey raises a toast for Wilson, and Vanessa whispers to him that she is trying to provoke him, testing him because she fears him. As the work crew put together by Mr. Charles finishes uploading the weapons from the Northern Star, we see Connor Powell sends them to wait for a pickup on board, and the foreman asks Powell to just pay them and let them go, as they want to go back to their families. But Powell refuses and forces them to return to the ship. McDuffie drinks at the bar, having lost the Duquesne case, as Paige suddenly bumps into her and slips her a message to get back to her office now. Returning to the office, McDuffie encounters Daredevil and tries to tell him that she has nothing to do with his resistance, but Daredevil disagrees. Daredevil asks McDuffie to tell him everything she could about the AVTF base, and even though she was blindfolded, her knowledge is still valuable to Daredevil. Using McDuffie's intel, Daredevil manages to infiltrate the base and tracks down the weapons shipment from the Northern Star. However, he chooses not to go after the weapons and instead liberates the people detained by the AVTF, including Duquesne and the Soledad Alia. Daredevil and Duquesne join forces in fighting back against the AVTF, getting Alia and the other prisoners out of the cells. Meanwhile, Paige gets approached by Angelo Del Toro, wearing the Amulet of Power, who offers her help to save her aunt and others, showing Paige that she managed to steal the AVTF comms. As Daredevil gets the prisoners outside, Powell orders the AVTF to open fire at them, forcing them to get down and brace for their lives. Paige and Del Toro manage to steal an armored prisoner transports and get everyone inside, as Ariana knows the place where they can hide from the AVTF. Daredevil and Paige separate from others and escape as well, while the AVTF cannot follow them due to Del Toro slashing their tires. Clever. Powell reports to Kingpin that Daredevil liberated the prisoners, but the weapons were still secured at Red Hook. Kingpin then gives Powell an order, and he blows up the Northern Star with the workers on board. As Daredevil hears this and realizes in horror that Kingpin has killed all of the workers. And that wraps up episode 3 and my review. Overall, I thought episode 3 was fantastic, and seeing Daredevil freeing all of the prisoners was just classic stuff, and fighting off all of the officers was just brilliant. Absolutely loved this. This really felt like the Daredevil of the Netflix shows, just absolutely enjoyable, and things are really hotting up in a big way. And I loved how Karen Page works as an ally for Daredevil. She's not some damsel in distress or girl looking pretty. She's really helping Daredevil and having a big part in this whole season and in his mission to take down the Kingpin. So I think the dynamic between these two works out really well. And seeing how far Murdoch and Page have come in the aftermath of Foggy Nelson's death has just made them even more stronger. So now that Kingpin has had all of the workers killed off, this has just made the war between Daredevil and the Kingpin twice as personal, as if it wasn't personal enough already. But now, thanks to Kingpin's actions, Daredevil has got more reason to go after the Kingpin than ever. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 3? Did you enjoy it? What's your thoughts on Karen Page's role in this episode? Do you think she's a good ally for Daredevil? And do you think she works very well with him? Do you like their dynamic? And also, what's your thoughts on Kingpin killing off all the workers on the Northern Star? Do you think this has given Daredevil more reason to go after him now? And do you think this has made the war between them twice as personal? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Daredevil Born Again Season 2 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 4, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing, especially with the way episode 3 played out. It's going to be epic, and I can't wait. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.